6-day circle Keiko talks about, that was a hard circle. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't, it was a mixed group. And there were some blows, there was some knockdown, drag out, real hard tensions at play during that time, which for me was like, oh, this is great. this, this is how we do it. You know, the perception of what a circle is and then the reality of what circle is can cause grief in people. Because if they think that it's all about touchy feely, let's always end in a good way in a nice, neat, tidy bow, and everybody walks out dancing on their toe tips as though they've just met the Buddha. You know, they're operating kind of in that mindset of it's fast food. It's fast food mindset. It's a take a pill and this will be over in 2 days mindset. They're not operating with the reality like when you sit in circle, anything can happen. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's just that it holds it. And for those of us who have been paying attention, COVID was an amplifier. COVID was like taking all the ills and all the woes and the worries, all of it, and just sticking it through an amplifier that's got 20 million speakers. And rah, that's what COVID did. And then we do the classic United States, North of America, get back to business. Your personhood as it relates to this work is minimal, regardless of the fact that personhood shapes how people show up in space. And if personhood is fractured and multiple fractured people show up in space, what are you dealing with? And we're just going to pretend like it's business as usual. And unfortunately, we're led by leaders who don't understand or don't have training, rather, in how to operationalize good shepherding. They're not there's like this classic idea of what it means to be a leader. But to be pastoral, that like kind of pastoral care as a leadership quality, that's a very underdeveloped muscle in most leadership trainings, programs. So I think that's another leg of the stool that's got things rough the way they are. Add George Floyd to the equation, and we're not dealing with the same racial reality that people thought they were dealing with. Things are not the same. And the gray area, which was pretty well sculpted, I'd say through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that gray area has gotten real small. And so the feeling that you have to be aligned on a side, even if you don't fully agree with it, in order to maintain credibility and place and not feel like you're about to be canceled and kicked off the island, just increases anxiety. That's another leg on the stool. Add to that another leg on the stool that all of this is also all of this is under the umbrella of skill. I've studied race deeply. I've studied culture deeply. I've worked with people who do the same thing, and we know how to talk about it in a way it's high level, no? But you take society and social happenings, everybody wades into the conversation as though we're operating on the same level, as though they have the same amount of skill as I do. They don't. And then what emotional baggage comes up when that understanding or realization kicks in? And given the time period that we're in, it doesn't take much for that fuse to just go crazy red. That's a fourth leg on this stool. all of that makes now pretty tense. I'll give them that. It's tense out there. And it's always been tense. Some people just have had a chance and ability to kind of fly under the radar a little bit. It's kind of like pop psychology got you through, but now when you have to do real deep psychology, the problem's still there. It's not, it has not gone away. Talking about race is not so simple. It's just not. Not only is it the content, the history, the theoretical frameworks, it's also your emotional relationship to the ideas that are dusted up in race. And if you start hearing something that challenges your identity, oh, same thing for gender, right? Same thing for any of these other identifiers, sexuality, it's the same thing. But everybody now wants to weigh in as though their opinion is well-reasoned, fact, academically studied material, and it's just not. The emotional echo chambers that are ripping each other's throats apart are hard. It makes the space charged. It does. And then I think the last thing I'll sort of end with is that you know, I feel for the teachers who are in it to win it and are actually trying to do good work, and they don't have leadership that actually models what that good work looks like. Then they're left to actually pick up more work. They have to not only do their work and teach, but they have to construct models of leadership that support the work that they're doing, because they're not getting it from up above. You will probably hear me talk about principled neutrality at some point. This is the thought that's in leaders' heads, being principally neutral. And part of their MO in being principally neutral, principled and neutral, is to be silent in the face of difficult conversation. At the same time, they're asking for educators to model civilized discourse to youth. But what they actually practice themselves is silence, which means the educators that work for the leaders aren't getting a model of, well, how to, because they're not doing it as adults, they're not having civilized discourse. So how then can they pass that on to the kids? But it's the educators, the teachers, who are being reviewed for the work. Their job's on the line, not the administrator. The administrator can go on ahead and be quiet and let hell unfold underneath them. As long as they, you know, trot out the one day fill in the blank fare so that they can check the box and look, we try to do something to address hell, but we just don't know what's going on. My 2 cents. Again.
So one of our sayings in Huayruro is that paradox signals wholeness. And so my answer is it doesn't change our work. And my answer is it changes our work. So in some sense, no matter the setting, the chaos, the changing world, our work doesn't change, because at the base level, what Circle is about mitigating power. The practice doesn't change, but the pressure from the outside world with the power and the inequities is stronger than ever. So we have to have more sensitivity. We have to have more grace for mistakes. We have to have more patience with the practice itself, because the inequities are so much more in our face in 2023 than they were in 2018. These problems were always there. Institutional racism has always been there. But what the devastation that COVID has done culturally in combination with institutional racism and capitalism it's just an inordinate amount of pressure. And so I think it hasn't changed in that the practice hasn't changed. What has changed is how we show up. We have to show up more patient than ever. We have to show up more gracious than ever. A circle series that maybe would have once taken 4 circles now takes 12 circles, because it takes the first 3 circles for people to sit in their chair and not interrupt, because they're so on edge. People are so on edge. So it's just 3, okay, practice, 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 practice. So the practice is a longer arc, but the process in and of itself remains as intact as it has been for thousands of years. That's what comes to mind.
I used to work for a nonprofit, local nonprofit, whose name is Center for Ethical Leadership. And then Seattle tend to be more like see us very progressive, liberal, but hard for us to see to talk about race. And the Center for Ethical Leadership would like to encourage us to have that conversation, then bring the peacemaking circle. So at the time when I was there, the executive director, he's Dale Nino. He experienced the peacemaking circle, and he just thought that's a great opportunity, great way to have authentic conversation from our heart. Then at that time I was a graduate student. And then that was a 6 days racial healing circle. Then the question was, what does race mean to you? And then it's kind of going. And the 6 days just we sit in a circle. Then I met Jabali at that time. So I always ask me, are you still interested in circle? And then yes. So then, never end. And then this is a way of being now. So that piece is not changing. And then, but probably the first 5 years or 10 years, I just more focusing on the mechanism of circle. Why it is happening? What is this magic? How does this magic happen? If I know it, I can do it more. So that's why, much more like a technical or like a, how can I say, researchers more easily like let go of my power and then also control. And then, the first I just started to do this, and then people say, oh, like you need to let go of your control. Yeah, exactly. But which level of control you would like to let go? And then what kind of like a changing part is more letting go control, letting go. Whatever's happening, that's the process. Another word is trust the process. So I am more like a trust in the process, even though at this moment, for example, if something happening in this space, still I trust the process. So that's why, all bigger picture, maybe that's what we need to have at this moment. So, and then shift from doing to being more. Still doing is important, but, the more being is very important. Not important. Actually, the naturally being is kind of the space I pitch my tent. Like pitch my tent and I can walk to the trail somewhere, but this is my station. So I feel like a being is very big thing. So, I mean, like a circle is so embedded in my life. So that's why I can give, I don't know how I say, give a credit to circle, but but actually this is circle is my foundation of my life. So that's why